a classic epiglottis again, and once again we notice what? A lot of fatty infiltration. Alright? So if you ask me, as you ask me, what is one of the things basically, I would say to you, one, you tend not to see the isogenous groups as neatly as you would observe them in hyaline cartilage, and also there's a lot of fatty infiltration. So whoever along with that last slide, here it is. Now let me move on because time is against us.
Yes, yes. You don't see a lot of isogenous groups, or you do?
You tend not to see many of them. What you tend to see is a lot of what?
Fatty infiltration.
Epiglottis is characterized by a lot of fatty infiltration. Alright, now students, let's move on now, because really the major part of the show is the lung, and we need to get to the lung. Alright, the lung is quite complex. So here we are looking now, and note what we said a while ago, compared to a bronchus, which we'll look at a little later. As you can see, all we're looking at is what? This is the lumen of the trachea. Going right across here, we cannot visualize all of the lumen. Alright, whereas for a bronchus, one of the bronchi, we can see quite a bit of the lumen. But here now, we're right just lost in the center of the trachea. So the trachea has the following features. So there we see the hyaline cartilage. Now there's a C-shaped hyaline cartilage coming right around here. Okay, that's the C-shaped hyaline cartilage going right around. Okay, there is a lot of, well, we're seeing bits of smooth muscle. Wait till we get there. Right here, it's a smooth muscle right here. Okay, but that smooth muscle is the trachealis muscle right here. Okay, but in fact this has two tubes juxtaposed. This is the trachea juxtaposed right here with the esophagus. Alright, and this esophagus has a lot of glandular tissue right here. So we're not concentrating on that, we're over in this tube here. And this is smooth muscle, and we're seeing here hyaline cartilage. There are the tracheal glands right here. These are the tracheal glands right here. Alright. Let me not, this one I'm not too impressed with this. It's quite a massive trachea. Let me use something a little smaller. Alright. That one is really large. That one must have been maybe from a human. That's very, very big. Alright. Let me go down to a smaller scale. Alright. So there we see now. So this is the trachea right here, juxtaposed with the esophagus. Okay, lots of glandular tissue. Alright. So that's the hyaline cartilage. There we can see the perichondrium, the little isogenous groups. And there we see now the respiratory epithelium on the trachea. Very good. Nice. This has a lot of what? Cilia. There you see the right? So the cilia is very well developed here on this. Okay? So this is all to do with the mechanism of mucociliary action of moving the captured foreign objects, you know, stuff like that that's trapped in the mucus and pushing it up. So these are the goblet cells right here. So this is pseudostratified columnar epithelium with goblet cells and ciliated. This is a beautiful picture here of the cilia. The cilia are very, very, very well developed here. And it rests on a very distinctive basement membrane. Pseudostratified columnar ciliated. The basement membrane is very distinct. Okay? And there we see the tracheal glands right here. Okay, these are the tracheal glands right here. And this area is known as the lamina propria. So the respiratory epithelium has a very distinct basement membrane, and underlying this is the lamina propria. And in the lamina propria, we're going to now get some of these tracheal glands. Okay? Outside of this, we see what? The hyaline cartilage. Okay, that's all hyaline cartilage, and that's the perichondrium. Lacunae, Roy, that's the correct pronunciation? Lacunae. Lacunae, alright. Alright, Roy, the lacunae, and there we see, let's see if we can find a lot of now the smooth muscle. That's the trachealis muscle, where the little ends of the, just posteriorly, okay, that's a little nerve, a little bit there. Alright, let's trace it back around here. Okay. So all of this here now should be some smooth muscle in this region right here. You can see. Alright. So right here, all of this is smooth muscle. Alright. So basically the trachea has a C-shaped cartilage, and it can't be a complete tube, because remember when the bolus is going down the esophagus now has to expand. So you have that trachealis muscle in front of it to allow now for the esophagus to expand, okay? It wouldn't want the trachea to have complete rings of cartilage. Alright, because right behind it is there. So we see this smooth muscle here, and that is the trachealis muscle. Now the outermost layer of the trachea is known as what? It has an adventitium. Very good. The outermost layer is referred to as an adventitium. And there is some more smooth muscle right here, a bit more of the trachealis muscle right here, and these are the tracheal glands. There we can see one of the ducts of the tracheal gland leading right into the lumen. And the goblet cells seem to be quite prominent at this point. Alright. So there are the goblet cells right here, a number of them, and there is the gland, okay? So these are a number of tracheal glands right here, and there is a duct. So that's the duct of the gland right here. So the secretion of this gland is poured right onto the surface membrane right here. That's very interesting. So you can actually see where one of the tracheal glands is entering right into the lumen of the esophagus. And note the what? The cilium. Alright? So it's a beautiful slide of the trachea. Okay? Really a top-notch slide of the trachea. Let me look for other little gross features on this slide. So we've looked at the more micro features. Let's look at maybe some of the more gross features that we may encounter. Alright, a little fat over here. Little fat. Bit of the esophagus back here. Once again, watch here. That's the recurrent laryngeal nerve. Right in the tracheoesophageal groove, we find the left and right recurrent laryngeal nerve. Okay? Have you done the recurrent laryngeal nerves yet?
It looks a bit.
Mine is fractured. Where's the left recurrent laryngeal nerve? Where does that arise from? Where? Left. In relation to what? Lots of questions and that in the exam. The left recurrent laryngeal nerve. Given off in relation to what?
Sorry.
The arch of the aorta. And more so, a structure known as the ligamentum what? Arteriosum. The ligamentum what? Arteriosum. Let me look at this slide. It doesn't look very good just looking at it here, but sometimes these slides may have something exciting on it. I'm going to get into the long shortly. Sean, where is the trachea ending? Where does it end? Where does that trachea end? In terms of vertebral levels. Where's the trachea? See here? It's now what?
I think
See the
so.
trachea, it's what?
I think
Dividing into what? The two main stem bronchi, or the principal bronchi. Now where is that going to end? Where does it end its journey? Where exactly is it ending its journey? So this is the esophagus right here. Alright, this is the esophagus right here.